saw that in a Nickelodeon once and I always wanted to do it.
Picture this, you settle in for a cozy night of watching a period drama, expecting to be whisked away into the past. Whether it's the elegance of the Regency era, the wild romance of the Bronte sisters, or the lavish court of Versailles. The candlelit rooms glow with soft light, the costumes are meticulously crafted, and the cinematography feels like stepping into a time machine. But then something breaks the spell. It's not the dialogue, it's not the music, it's the face. The lead actress, while undeniably stunning, looks like she just walked out of a high-end skincare ad. Her skin is impossibly smooth, almost airbrushed. Her lips are subtly plumped. Her teeth? So white they practically glow in the candlelight. Her whole look feels more Instagram filter than 18th century oil painting. Suddenly, instead of believing she's an Austen heroine, you half expect her to whip out an iPhone and start vlogging. Welcome to the age of the iPhone face, a beauty phenomenon that started with the hyper-sculpted, high-definition aesthetic of influencers and celebrities, but has now infiltrated historical dramas. It's not just about Botox, fillers, or digital retouching. It's about the subtle ways that modern beauty ideals are reshaping how we portray the past, from casting choices to makeup techniques, to Hollywood's obsession with the polished perfection. And it raises a fascinating debate. Can a face be too modern for a period film? What makes a face feel timeless versus contemporary? And why do some performances seamlessly transport us into history, while others make us feel like we're watching a TikTok star play dress up in a corset? Today we're diving deep into the intersection of beauty, nostalgia, and Hollywood aesthetics, exploring how our perception of beauty has evolved over the centuries, why historical accuracy and appearance matters, and what this entire conversation says about the impossible beauty standards placed on women, past and present. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The evolution of beauty in Hollywood. What makes a face feel timeless? To understand why some actors look completely at home in a period drama while others feel jarringly modern, we have to look at the evolution of beauty standards, both in history and Hollywood. But beauty has never been static. Every era had its own ideals, shaped by cultural values, technological advancements, and even economic conditions. What we perceive as timeless beauty isn't about conventional attractiveness. It's about whether a face aligns with historical aesthetics or is unmistakably tied to the present moment. In earlier centuries, natural symmetry, softness, and individual features were prized over a singular, homogeneous ideal. The Renaissance and Baroque periods celebrated full-rounded faces, gentle features, and ethereal quality. Think Botticelli's The Birth of Venus, or the glowing, imperfect faces of Rembrandt's portraits. These faces had a rawness to them. Their beauty wasn't sculpted, nor was it subjected to rigid symmetry. There was an appreciation for the human face as it was unfiltered, unretouched, and visibly part of the real world. By the Victorian and Edwardian eras, beauty took on a more delicate, restrained look. Pale skin was a sign of refinement, as opposed to a tan, which signified laboring outside, and women were expected to age gracefully rather than artificially to maintain youth. It was also an era where minimal makeup complexions were often enhanced with simple skincare or subtle powders, but there was no expectation of a sculpted, poreless complexion. Imperfections weren't seen as something to erase, but as a natural part of aging and status. Then, with the rise of Hollywood's golden age, beauty started to shift towards a new kind of cinematic perfection. This era introduced the concept of the movie star glamour, where lighting, makeup, and cinematography worked together to create an enhanced but still believable look. Think of Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly, and Vivian Leigh. Their faces were striking and polished, but not to the point of looking artificial. They still had natural skin texture, expressive lines, and features that hadn't been overly sculpted. Beauty was enhanced but not transformed. Everything changed with the rise of cosmetic perfection from the 1990s to the present. The introduction of Botox and filler, high-definition cameras, and social media filters completely redefined how we see beauty. Today's features are lifted, contoured, and smoothed, whether through makeup, injectables, or even digital post-production. Symmetry is king, and natural asymmetry, which was once considered a marker of individuality and beauty, is often corrected. And what's the result? Faces look hyper-perfect, eerily uniform, and unmistakably modern, even when placed in a historical setting. This is why some actresses fit seamlessly into period dramas while others feel out of place. Keira Knightley, Kate Winslet, and Helena Bonham Carter all possess features that aren't locked into that one particular era. Their beauty isn't overtly sculpted or digitally altered, and they still have visible skin texture, expressive asymmetry, and the ability to age into a role naturally. Compare that to many modern actresses whose faces have been subtly adjusted to meet current beauty standards: flawless skin, contoured cheekbones, plumped lips, and digitally brightened teeth. These small tweaks may not seem extreme, but when placed in a period drama, they immediately signal present-day beauty, breaking the illusion of historical authenticity. The conversation around iPhone face in period dramas is ultimately about the disconnect between historical beauty and our current obsession with perfection. When a face looks too sculpted, too smooth, or too symmetrical, we instinctively recognize it as belonging to the 2020s, no matter how exquisite the costume or set design may be. Hollywood's pursuit of flawless beauty has made it harder for some actors to convincingly step into the past, because their faces have already been reshaped by aesthetics of the present. Chapter 2: Dakota Johnson in Persuasion. The ultimate iPhone face casting controversy. When Netflix released its adaptation of Persuasion in 2022, it promised a fresh take on Jane Austen's classic novel, but instead of delighting audiences, the film quickly became one of the most divisive period drama adaptations in recent memory. While much of the backlash was directed at its Fleabag-inspired tone, complete with 4 wall-breaking narration and contemporary humor, many viewers also fixated on something more subtle yet equally disruptive: Dakota Johnson's casting as Anne Elliot. It wasn't that she lacked talent, but rather that she looked and felt too modern for the role. Johnson's appearance in Persuasion became a prime example of what critics call the iPhone face in period dramas, that uncanny sense that an actor's beauty has been shaped by 20th century aesthetics, making them feel out of place in a historical setting. There was something about her face, her expressions, even the way she moved that felt distinctly modern, creating a disconnect between her and the Regency era world she was supposed to inhabit. Unlike actresses like Keira Knightley or Kate Winslet, who have long been praised for their seamless transitions into period roles, Dakota Johnson felt as though she had simply been dropped into the past rather than belonging to it. One of the biggest giveaways was her hair. In the Regency era, hairstyles were carefully arranged with soft curls, updos, and pinned ringlets framing the face. Even when a woman's hair was styled to look effortless, it was still a deliberate process, shaped by pomades and powders. Dakota Johnson's hair, however, had the cool girl undone look, messy in a way that felt chic rather than historically accurate. It had the aesthetic of a casual, lived-in style that modern women aspire to, a little too close to the tousled ways of a Glossier campaign, rather than a Jane Austen heroine. The effect was subtle but significant. It made her look like a 2020s woman, not a woman of the 19th century. Then there was the makeup, or rather the illusion of no makeup. While at first glance her face looked natural, it actually had that polished, glowing aesthetic that defines today's clean girl beauty trend. Her skin was smooth, her lips subtly plump, and her complexion had a soft, radiant finish that suggests an excellent skincare routine, not the minimal beauty practices of Regency England. In reality, women of that era wore little to no visible makeup, perhaps a touch of rouge or a hint of powder to combat shine. The concept of a glowy, dewy complexion would have been completely foreign. Yet, Dakota Johnson's look and Persuasion felt distinctly curated, in line with modern Instagram aesthetics rather than historical realism. Beyond her appearance, her performance style also contributed to the sense that she didn't quite fit into the time period. Regency era women, particularly those of Anne Elliot's social class, were expected to carry themselves with certain grace and restraint, not stiff necessarily, but composed, with measured expressions and careful posture. Johnson, by contrast, had a casual, almost contemporary looseness to her movements and expressions. Her ironic detachment, her dry humor, and her slightly slouched posture all felt more at home in a modern rom-com than in an Austen adaptation. This was a stark contrast to performances like Jennifer L's Elizabeth Bennet in Pride and Prejudice in 1995, where every glance and shift in tone felt deliberately attuned to the social etiquette of the period. Even Keira Knightley's Elizabeth in the 2005 version, while more spirited and bold, still carried the mannerisms of a woman shaped by her time. Dakota Johnson's Anne, on the other hand, seemed to move through her world with a level of modern self-awareness that made it difficult to fully believe in the setting. What made this even more glaring was that everything else in the film was trying to be historically accurate, from the costume to the set design. When an actor's look, styling, and performance don't align with natural period details around them, it creates aesthetic dissonance. We don't just watch period dramas for the costumes. We want to be immersed in a world that feels real, even if it's a romanticized version of the past. Dakota Johnson's casting, whether fair or not, underscored how important faces and performances are in maintaining that illusion. This also speaks to a larger shift in Hollywood's casting trends for period pieces. In older adaptations, actors were allowed to have visible skin texture, natural asymmetry, and even slightly imperfect teeth. Jennifer L.A., Kate Winslet, and even Cate Blanchett all embodied a kind of raw, natural beauty that translates across time periods. Today, however, many leading actors have been subtly or not so subtly altered by modern beauty standards. The expectation of poreless skin, sculpted cheekbones, and digitally brightened teeth means that even when an actor is cast in a period drama, their look often betrays the decade in which they were filmed. Dakota Johnson's Anne Elliot became the ultimate example of how modern beauty aesthetics can disrupt historical storytelling. It wasn't just about her, it was about what she represented, the way contemporary beauty standards, acting styles, and subtle cosmetic enhancements can break the illusion of the past. While some audiences may not consciously notice these details, they feel them. And in a genre that relies on transporting us into another time, that feeling can make or break the entire film. Ultimately, Persuasion highlighted the importance of not just casting an actor who looks the part, but one who feels the part. It wasn't that Dakota Johnson was miscast because she was not a strong actress. It was that her entire aesthetic, from her face to her mannerisms, felt distinctly 21st century. In a world where period dramas are already battling to maintain historical immersion against modern filmmaking techniques, the iPhone face is a growing problem that audiences are becoming more and more aware of. As Hollywood continues to cast contemporary actors in historical roles, the question remains, are we losing the authenticity that makes period drama so compelling? And if so, is it time for filmmakers to reconsider how they approach not just the costumes and settings, but the face they bring to the screen? Let me know your thoughts. Do modern actors take you out of period dramas? Or is this something that doesn't bother you? I mean, I can really notice when I watch like historical periods, even that are supposed to take place even in the 70s or 80s or 60s, and you can really see it when people have lip filler, like when something's just off, their teeth are too perfect. Because if you watch even old movies from the 80s, 90s, and 70s, even if you watch ones that have been like historically restored, you can see that the actors' teeth aren't perfect. They're like slightly tinted. You can see fine lines on their face because they don't have Botox. There is a difference. And I feel like the first time this started happening was with Titanic. I mean, obviously that's one of my favorite movies, but I think Kate Winslet probably wouldn't have fallen in love with Jack Dawson because his teeth were perfect at the time. He was too clean cut. I think if he was a real character in real life, he would have like rotting teeth. He would be like dirty in his hands. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of unrealistic, but I think that's why it was such a blockbuster. In many ways, I think that was kind of the start of it. Chapter 3, Why Performance Style Matters in Period Dramas. A period drama is more than just a visual experience. It's a complete immersion to another time. Every detail from the way actors speak to how they carry themselves contributes to making the world feel believable. While much attention is given to costumes, set design, and historical accuracy, one of the most overlooked yet crucial elements of a successful period film is performance style. When an actor's posture, gestures, expressions, and vocal delivery don't align with customs of the period, the portraying the illusion of stepping into the past is broken. Unlike modern films where casual movements and naturalistic acting are the norm, period dramas require a heightened awareness of historical etiquette, social customs, and controlled physicality. Many modern actors accustomed to contemporary roles struggle with the shift, unintentionally injecting modern body language, speech patterns, and relaxed physicality into the performances. When this happens, the film no longer feels like an authentic window into the history. It feels like a modern reenactment that with actors playing dress up. I mean, it would be hard to try to really transport yourself back to a time like hundreds of years ago and try to figure out how people acted back then. And the Regency era, where Persuasion is set, was a time of strict social formality. Women, particularly those of upper class, were trained to maintain perfect posture, graceful movement, and deliberate, measured gestures. Every motion, from how they sat to how they folded their hands, was a reflection of their status and refinement. Slouching, fidgeting, or lounging too casually was considered improper for a lady, especially in social settings. This level of physical control and restraint is one of the reasons why classic Jane Austen adaptations such as Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility feel so immersive. The actors in those films fully committed to their mannerisms and body language at the time. Jennifer Ehle as Elizabeth Bennet maintained a careful balance between liveliness and restraint, ensuring that even her most playful moments didn't feel out of place or informal. Kate Winslet's portrayal of Marianne Dashwood was emotional and passionate, yet still grounded in the poised physicality of a woman raised in a strict social hierarchy. Now compare that to Dakota Johnson's performance in Persuasion. Her Anne Elliot slouches, sprawls across furniture, and moves with a casual looseness that feels more appropriate for a modern rom-com than a Regency-era romance. While the choice was likely meant to make Anne seem more relatable to contemporary audiences, it clashed with the film's historical setting. Instead of evoking a sense of repressed longing or quiet suffering, two traits that define Anne Elliot in Austen's novel, Johnson's relaxed, almost indifferent body language made it seem as though she wasn't fully immersed in the world of the film. Another key element of period-accurate acting is facial expression. In modern cinema, expressive, exaggerated facial reactions are common. Eyebrow raises, smirks, knowing glances all convey emotion in a way that feels casual and spontaneous. But in the 19th century, outward expression of emotion were carefully controlled, especially among upper-class women. Women were expected to maintain a composed demeanor, even in the face of heartbreak and disappointment. This is where Dakota Johnson's acting choices and Persuasion felt jarring. Instead of conveying Anne's internal pain through subtle, repressed emotion, she often played her as a sarcastic, ironic, and emotionally detached, almost as if she were commenting on the events of the story rather than experiencing them. I think she's just kind of a casual actor, to be honest. She kind of acts like that in a lot of her movies, and her frequent use of smirks and eye rolls and exasperated expressions gave Anne a modern edge that felt out of step in Jane Austen's world. By contrast, Keira Knightley in Pride and Prejudice infused Elizabeth Bennet with intelligence and wit, but never a way that felt too modern. Her expressions were naturalistic yet controlled, capturing both Elizabeth's sharp mind and her societal constraints. Even in moments of passion, like the infamous rain-soaked argument with Mr. Darcy, Keira Knightley's emotions remained grounded in the social expectations of the time. She was expressive, but never in a way that felt out of place. Speech pattern in period dramas are equally important as physicality. The way characters spoke in Jane Austen's time was more structured, deliberate, and formal than today's naturalistic, conventional style. Sentences were carefully constructed, reflecting the influence of classical education and social etiquette. Contradictions like can't or won't were less commonly used in polite society. People spoke in full, properly enunciated sentences. Vocal tone was measured, not overly expressive, particularly among women, who were expected to speak with a degree of softness and restraint. In period dramas like Emma Thompson's Sense and Sensibility or Pride and Prejudice, you'll notice that actors modulate their voices to match this rhythm. The delivery has a sense of formality, even in moments of emotional intensity. By contrast, Dakota Johnson's delivery felt too casual, too modern, and too contemporary in tone. Maybe she didn't even want to do the movie and she was just like kind of just going through the motions, being casual. And I don't know, because sometimes when I see interviews of her, on like late night shows or something, there's something very casual about her. She spoke in relaxed conversational rhythms, which made the dialogue feel like something out of the 2020s romantic comedy rather than 19th century novel. Her use of modern pauses and throwaway inflections made certain lines feel out of place, even when the words themselves were pulled from Austen's text. Some might argue that modernized acting choices make historical films more relatable to contemporary audiences. I mean, I feel like they did that in Titanic too, with a lot of the things where she's like spitting off the deck and like gave that guy the middle finger, I think, when they were going down the elevator. Like certain things that they talked about, which I just don't think she would have done at that time to make it more of a modern blockbuster. But the best period dramas succeed not by making characters feel modern, but by immersing viewers in their world. I actually recently watched the movie Barry Lyndon. It's from I think 1975. It's a Stanley Kubrick movie, and I believe it takes place in the 1700s, and it was restored beautifully, that it was incredible. Like, you really felt you were going back in time with the period. Like, you can just, if you ever have time and want to watch it, it's 3 hours long, but it's an incredible movie. Audiences don't need a winking ironic performance to relate to historical characters. They just need strong acting that honors the constraints and nuances of the time. This is why actors like Kate Winslet, Keira Knightley continue to excel in period dramas. They understand that playing a historical role isn't just about wearing the right costumes. It's about adapting to their movement, voice, and expressions to fit in a world where social rules dictated how people behaved. And Dakota Johnson's Anne Elliot, by contrast, felt too modern, too casual, and too self-aware, breaking the immersion that makes period drama so compelling. It wasn't just that Persuasion had a contemporary tone, it was that its lead actress didn't physically or vocally adapt to the period she was meant to exist in. As period dramas continue to be produced, filmmakers face an important choice. Should they adapt historical roles with modern acting styles, or should actors be trained to better embody the behaviors of the past? The best period dramas transport us to the other world, not just through costumes and sets, but through subtle details of how characters speak, move, and express themselves. If performance style is ignored, then even the most beautifully crafted period film risks feeling like a contemporary story in historical clothing. If Hollywood wants to preserve the authenticity and charm of period dramas, then actors must be trained to move, speak, and behave like people of the past, not just recite period-accurate dialogue in a modern way. Because at the end of the day, the most immersive period dramas aren't just about aesthetics, they're about fully embody the world of a story, and I really love that feeling of being taken back to a time period and you actually feel like you're there, which is rare in modern movies. In Chapter 4, the bigger issue, why modern beauty standards are rewriting history. The discussion around the iPhone face in period dramas isn't just about one film or one actress. It reflects a much larger trend in Hollywood's approach to historical storytelling. The increasing use of digitally enhanced beauty, cosmetic procedures, and modern grooming standards has subtly reshaped how the past is depicted on screen, creating a sanitized, filtered version of history. Instead of allowing historical realism to take center stage, many modern period dramas present an aesthetic that aligns more with today's beauty trends than with how people actually looked in the past. In earlier decades of filmmaking, period dramas embraced a more organic, lived-in approach to beauty. Actresses had visible skin texture, fine lines, slightly crooked teeth, and natural asymmetry, which allowed them to blend seamlessly into historical settings. Even the most glamorous leading ladies of classic Hollywood, such as Vivien Leigh in Gone with the Wind, Deborah Kerr in The King and I, still had faces that felt untouched by artificial sculpting. Their beauty was enhanced by lighting, cinematography, and styling, not by Botox filler and digital retouching. Fast forward to today, and Hollywood's beauty standards have fundamentally shifted. Cosmetic enhancements, high-tech skincare, filters, and digital smoothing in post-production have created an expectation that actors should always look flawless, even when portraying historical figures who never would have had access to such beauty technology. While the aesthetic may work in contemporary films, when applied to period dramas, it alters our perception of history, making it look suspiciously airbrushed. One of the most striking issues in modern period dramas is how perfect everyone looks. In reality, even the wealthiest individuals of the past had visual pores, fine lines, and slight imperfections. But in today's historical films, actors have poreless skin, plump lips, defined cheekbones, and meticulously groomed brows, a look that aligns more with social media clean girl aesthetics than with anything historically accurate. Even when an actor hasn't undergone cosmetic procedures, post-production editing often erases any visible texture or imperfection, and Hollywood increasingly relies on digital smoothing, subtle skin brightening, erasing wrinkles, and softening facial features to create an illusion of eternal youth. And what's the result? Period dramas where every actor, regardless of their character's age or social status, looks like they just walked out of a high-end skincare commercial. For example, Emma from 2020, starring Anne Taylor-Joy, is a beautifully shot film that embraces a pastel-hued, romanticized aesthetic. However, its flawlessly airbrushed characters look more like they belong in a luxury fashion campaign than in 19th century England. Anya's glass-like skin, precisely sculpted brows, and delicate, symmetrical features are stunning, but they don't reflect how women of the time actually looked. This kind of aesthetic perfection is visually appealing, but undermines the historical authenticity that period dramas once prioritized. Compare this to films like Sense and Sensibility or Wuthering Heights, which embraced a grittier, more realistic depiction of the past. The characters in these films felt real, with weathered skin, imperfect hair, and naturalistic lighting that didn't attempt to erase every blemish. But allowing for this level of authenticity, these films felt immersive rather than stylized. When period dramas prioritize modern beauty trends over realism, they risk creating a distorted version of history, one where the past is only beautiful by today's today's beauty standards. One of the most glaring things that's rarely discussed in period pieces is the perfect teeth. Today, nearly every actor in period dramas have perfectly straight, ultra-white teeth. Something would have been practically impossible to achieve before modern orthodontics and dentistry. While historical figures weren't necessarily walking around with completely rotting teeth, minor discoloration, slightly uneven teeth, and signs of wear were common, even among aristocrats. Yet in modern period dramas, even peasants, servants, and working class characters had dazzling white symmetrical smiles, which is true. That's the example of Titanic, where Jack Dawson's teeth were too perfect. This is another subtle but highly noticeable inconsistency that reminds the audience that they're watching a modern film, not a genuine depiction of history. Some films have attempted to correct this. In To Walk Invisible, a gritty biopic about the Bronte sisters, the actors had teeth that looked appropriate for the time, slightly yellowed, imperfect, and real. These small details contributed to the film's immersion of authenticity. Contrast this with a show like Bridgerton, where even the working class characters have gleaming, perfectly aligned teeth, completely out of step with what dental care looked like in the 1800s. While Bridgerton is intentionally stylized and doesn't claim to be historically accurate, this trend of idealized beauty is creeping into even the most serious period dramas, making history look far more polished than it actually was. The growing disconnect between historical accuracy and modern beauty trends raises a deeper question. Are period dramas just another extension of the contemporary beauty industry? Hollywood has always influenced beauty standards, but now beauty culture is influencing how we depict history. If actors in period dramas are expected to maintain the same level of aesthetic perfection as they do in modern films, then what we're seeing isn't history, it's a curated fantasy of what we want the past to look like. Historically, beauty norms have always evolved. In the Renaissance, fuller, softer faces were idealized. In the Victorian era, pale complexions were natural features were prized. But what happens when modern beauty standards become so rigid that they overwrite historical norms altogether? When we watch period dramas today, we're no longer just seeing the past, we're seeing a filtered, sculpted, and digitally enhanced version of it. The subtle influence of modern beauty expectations, cosmetic enhancements, and post-production retouching means that even films claiming to be historically accurate are often presenting an altered Instagram-era vision of history. The backlash against Persuasion wasn't just about Dakota Johnson. It was about a larger movement of audiences pushing back against the increasing modernity in period films. People aren't just looking for historical accuracy in costumes and dialogue. They want actors who look like they belong in the past. And this is why actresses like Keira Knightley and Florence Pugh are often praised for their period drama performances. They haven't been overly altered by modern beauty trends. Their faces still have natural expressions, visible texture, and a timeless quality that fits historical settings. This trend suggests that audiences do want authenticity in period dramas, not just in set design, but in faces, grooming, and beauty standards. And the rise of gritty, historically accurate films like The Portrait of the Lady on Fire, The Favorite, which embrace unfiltered beauty and lived-in realism, shows that people are craving a return to authenticity. My only thing is that bothers me the most when an actress has a lot of lip filler, and I can't look away from it when I see the lip filler that just looks like too much for the period. That's the one thing I think that almost bothers me over other things. And maybe too much Botox on the forehead. Are we rewriting history to fit modern beauty trends? Ultimately, the iPhone face in period dramas isn't just about one actress or one film. It's about the slow, subtle way modern beauty trends are reshaping how we depict history. The more Hollywood prioritizes flawlessness, digital retouching, and contemporary aesthetics, the more we risk losing the authenticity that makes period drama so compelling. So what do you think? Does the iPhone face break the illusion of period dramas for you? Or is it just a minor detail in the grand scheme of storytelling? Let me know in the comments below. I mean, I think really good directors and writers and filmmakers probably want to steer away from these type of things. I think a lot of it is these Netflix movies, these ones that are quickly slapped together, or TV shows where they just want to make money, and they're assuming that the audience is stupid and they don't care and they just want to watch some dramatic storytelling. I mean, I personally couldn't watch Bridgerton for this reason. I know a lot of people love it, so I think if you can kind of like disassociate from all that and just watch it for what it is, because I mean, I like the movie Marie Antoinette. Again, Kristen Dunst didn't have like a lot of lip filler or anything like that in the movie, but technically it wasn't historically accurate with the music and stuff, but I did like how it was styled. So I don't know, it's iffy. I guess you have to figure out what your expectations are before going into the movie. Anyways, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are about the iPhone face in historical films. All right, thanks for watching.